So, hello everybody, my name is Amelia, and I am actually back to do another video real quick. I know, I've all of a sudden gone back to the stationery, which is probably not ideal, but however, point is, I had actually gotten a phone call back from KU in regards to my SRS appointment. Had a whole conversation with Judy Gay. She had the nurse there. She actually provided me with a lot of information. The really disappointing thing was she literally called me right when I had gone on lunch. I'm kind of glad that it was when I was on lunch and not while I was on shift. Like literally as I was clicking that button to clock out. Sure enough, I get the phone call. There goes my phone. I was like, oh my gosh. So I had no opportunity to record it. And as a matter of fact, I recorded one of these videos prior, like trying to sit there and figure out a way to recap everything we talked about. But then after I finally went to my phone and I realized because my new phone had broken, hence why I had so many phone problems, I ended up I ended up going back to my old phone. Well, the good thing is my new phone has a newer version of Android, which has a bunch of security permission problems that don't allow you to do what I do. But my old phone still functions with my voice recording app. It's an app called ACR. It's an amazing app, and it's shame on Google for putting security in that does not let you use the app anymore. But basically, it was afterwards that I found out, oh wait a minute, that entire conversation was recorded with my voice recorder, my call recorder app. So I am right here in camera because obviously I have no visuals for this, and I'm not even exactly sure this is gonna come out right on the video. Hopefully you can hear this okay. I'm gonna play this video. I'm probably gonna have to do some jump cut forwards. What I'll do is I'm gonna probably play it and listen to it and then just kind of cut out the parts that are not so important or they ramble on. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and press play. So just first off, this was me frantically, and she's like, "Do you want to just email me?" And I'm like, "No. Let me just find a place so I can talk." So the first part of that is that I basically had brought up the whole thing about the psychology letters, which I can actually give some more information on that really quick. Hopefully I can do this. So she had told me right there that basically that they like it if I have my letters, but they are actually not required for that first appointment. And I know this is huge for anybody watching this video who's thinking of pursuing SRS themselves at KU. She had actually said that she was sorry that I had gotten that impression from the scheduling people. She says she was going to go and talk to them and make sure that they were aware that that was not actually a requirement. But basically, they follow the W path. They're very strict on it. Obviously, anybody, and it's no surprise they follow the W path. That's a whole nother conversation. But anyways, what she's basically saying is that I can come in and not have either letter and they'll figure it out. The good news is, because I did, and I'm disappointed in myself for not having the paperwork ready for this video, it had only been a few days and I had already gotten my new patient paperwork. That paperwork has everything in it describing what I needed, etc., etc. Great. I just had to fill it out. There were some simple things on there. I'm not going to go over that. But it does get down to the details of what is required for those letters. So for example, one of the letters has to actually come from a PhD psychologist. The second letter can actually be written by a therapist as long as the therapist just has a master's degree. I did have a couple therapy appointments since then, and I was talking to her about it, and she was capable of fulfilling that requirement. Because my therapist actually did have a master's, and she's like, you know what, I can do that for you. And she's more than willing to give me my letter. So my therapist is actually already working on my letter. Yay! She says she's going to send it off to me very soon. The only thing that I really have to work on right now is just simply getting that PhD psychologist letter. And it sounds like one of the best ways that my therapist thinks that could happen is for me to actually go get a psychological evaluation. That's a mouthful. With the intent of the PhD therapist providing me with a letter at the end if they feel that I'm ready for it. So that will probably be a subject for another video. Anyways, I've gone on long enough talking about the letters alone. Okay, I just went forward like 4 minutes, and there was a lot there. Basically, one of the things she said was, wow, let's see, where can I begin? So, I did ask, how long does the consultation usually last? She says generally we give you 1 hour. Great. She says there's a whole photo book that I'll get to look at. I'm sorry that unfortunately I'm probably not going to ever be able to show any of those pictures to anybody else other than just give my opinion on what I see when the 19th comes up. I am literally 2 weeks away from this consultation, so that's going to be interesting. The other thing that she says is that, because I asked about the options for payment, how I can, make the cost work. I ended up getting a $2,000 HSA through my work. The cost on that was about $80 per paycheck, so about $160. Yeah, I think about somewhere between $160 to $200 of my paycheck every month is going to go towards paying off the HSA. The good news is the HSA gives me that lump sum money available at the beginning of the year, and I can go ahead and start spending it on medical expenses right away, which will start counting towards my out-of-pocket. My plan is I do have some credit available that I'm going to use to pay off whatever extras I have. But the big goal is because I asked her, I said, well, the reimbursement, and she says basically what they're going to do is they're going to make an insurance claim. They will contact my insurance. They will put the claim through. She says usually it takes about 30 days for the insurance to get back and make an approval or a denial, whatever. She says sometimes they'll come back and ask for some additional information, have me do some additional things, whatever, but she says we won't know until later. But basically, once we have all that figured out and come my actual surgery date, I don't actually have to pay anything up front. The only thing that has to be figured is, because by the way, their full billing for the surgery is $32,000, which means because my insurance covers 70% of the surgery, I have to pay that 30% on the amount. So I guess an easy way to I like to look at it because of how math works in my head, that means I have to pay $300 for every $1,000 out of that 32. So take 300 times 32. But because I have an out-of-pocket maximum, that means I'm capped out at the $6,000 minus whatever medical expenses I end up making on my own prior to the actual surgery. She says that pretty much whatever is due, they will not require me to pay at the time of surgery. I can actually, they can bill me for whatever's left. So my HSA should pay about $2,000 of that at the time of the surgery. And then I will get a bill for about $4,000, which I can make payments towards, because I'll have available credit. If there is a payment I can't make, I can just use my credit for that. Not the most ideal thing. And I'm sure a lot of people out there who's watching this video who's interested in this process, but they themselves are not trans. That's the expense. And I haven't even begun to talk about, what FFS can cost. I have a trans friend who just got facial feminizing surgery, and it had costed her, I think, like around $42,000 out of pocket. Her insurance didn't even cover it. I don't know where she got the money, but that's besides the fact. So anyways, let's try to move on here. Okay, so one other thing that came up was she let me know that they have a very strict 30 BMI requirement. Currently my BMI is about 33.6, roughly. So that means that I really honestly, before my surgery date can actually take place, I need to lose about 25 pounds. And that's a whole nother conversation as well. I'm going to be doing a program here soon enough. I'm hoping I can make this a reality, because that's definitely a big prerequisite in order for me to get my surgery. But I do need to be at or under 30 BMI. The other thing that we were talking about was timetables. I had asked her how soon could I expect surgery, and she actually said that if insurance comes back within 30 days and I satisfy the BMI requirement and the hair requirement, because I have to have hair removal, I could have surgery as early as February or March. That's really kind of cutting it to the bit, as much as I would want to go in right away for that surgery. There is the fact that I have to put in a leave of absence for my work, because it's about a 6-week recovery period, and not to mention getting that approved and getting it all squared away. And I'm being told by our ASA at my work that the leave of absence company for Lowe's is a pain in the butt to deal with. So that's going to be very interesting. Not to mention, she was like, yeah, the worst part of all is usually they'll approve the leave, but then when you're like, hey, I'm ready to come back to work, they're like, they could drag their feet for nearly 2 weeks before they get you back in the system. So that's going to be fun. So anyways, I am definitely glad to hear how soon they could possibly get me in for surgery. It sounds like they pretty much have a pretty open timetable. Very quick, very swift. But I won't know more details until I get closer, especially the consultation. She basically says I'll go in for the consultation, and then during the consultation we can actually look at more real timetables. So just something else there was real quickly the hair removal. I had said that I'm getting laser. Because she asked me what was I actually doing. I have been doing 1 entire year of laser in the down under, or as they also like to call it, Brazilian. She says that's probably a pretty good amount of time. One of the things that they do during surgery is they do what's called a follicle scraping, where once they take the skin that they're going to reuse for the vaginal lining, they actually take they scrape the follicles off the back side to try to remove them. The downside is that it is not uncommon for them not to get all the follicles, or for one of them to be dormant in just that way. It's usually because it's so small and dormant that they don't see it. They try to get every single follicle, from what I understand, but it is not uncommon to have what's called that. Basically, imagine an ingrown hair inside of a body cavity. And I heard a very interesting saying once, which is basically, you don't want hair in your vagina. So that's going to be something to not try to prevent ahead of time. I have some pretty good results, I will say that. And an additional thing, I found out that my insurance through Lowe's does actually cover hair removal in preparation for surgery, and that's a recent benefit they added that used to never be covered because it was considered cosmetic. And then when they came to the realization of, wait a minute, this is more than cosmetic, has more about the reality of literally having a hair growing inside your cavity. So anyways, that's pretty straightforward about that one. So that's pretty much the end of the call. The call lasted 16 minutes and 6 seconds. Pretty much there was a lot of things that were discussed. I can't get into everything. I did mention that I knew some people who had been considering KU for surgery as well. And she was just like, oh yeah, have them call us. We'd be more than happy. So I'm still a little unsure how, what would be the word? Basically, how much confidence I have in them. And as I've said, it's going to be very interesting to see if I actually can trust the results and trust that they can provide adequate results for somebody like me, because it is very important to someone like me that I get good results. If I go through the surgery, spend $6,000, and then I get to the other end and it's like, yeah, that doesn't exactly look like what I expected, then that might not exactly be the greatest situation in the world. I mean, now I know for me personally, I get some really bad gender dysphoria triggers from the lower area. Just taking a shower can just be like, just really set me off, or changing my clothes, or yeah, it's not pretty. It's not pretty when you finally realize you're like, that doesn't make sense. That should not be there. That does not belong to me. And then you just go into this whole frenzy about, you know, I mean, it can ruin an entire day for somebody like me. So, but it needs to be right. Now, one thing I did do, I was talking to my therapist, just to kind of give a little brief here. And one of the things my therapist did help me with realizing is she said, I pretty much, she had said, I have pretty much talked to a lot of women, and she actually said, you'd be very surprised how many women are actually not afraid to talk about their genitals. But she was just saying, she said she has never actually met a woman who hadn't at least not something to complain about. She says it's all not perfect. There's always some sort of imperfection somewhere. And she says you know, basically, don't be surprised if you do have something to complain about. And I don't know, I know that might not be the best thing to say to a lot of people, but she did say that, and I did realize, I was like, you know what, that's not like the worst thing to think about, you know? Yeah, results should be good, as long as it's good. It's close, I guess. I can be happy. I don't want to get too PG-13 here on a YouTube video, but there was oh, and then something I did say to my therapist also, as I mentioned, I said, you know, I think I am getting more and more excited about this process, not as afraid, primarily just for the fact that how many people can actually say that they have gone through the experience of what it's like to basically be on both ends of the binary spectrum. You know, how many people can say that they know what it's like to have a penis and then to also know what it's like to have a vagina? I mean, not very many people can say that. And I'm gonna get to be one of them if I choose to go through this process. That's a huge thing right there. Yeah, I've heard about the whole thing about some people being like, yeah, after I'm post-op, they don't really remember what it was like before. I mean, because how can you really describe it? Anyways, I'll talk to you all next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Talk to you later. Bye.